Coming up on Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind is the tools you'll need to approach your divorce more strategically and less reactively.
Welcome to Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind, the book and podcast to help you get more creative, less reactive in your divorce. I am Corey Shapiro. I am a divorce attorney in New York City, and I do this podcast and I wrote my book to help you make better decisions in your divorce so you're not so stressed, you're not so overwhelmed. You can take a little bit of a break, a pause, and think about things before they haunt you, maybe for decades, maybe even for your life. So today we're dealing with ending the divorce attorney tactics, and we're going to end on the top. We're going to deal with the top dog. You know, we went over the three other styles. We went over the swarmer. You know, those are the divorce attorneys who are focusing on a lot of little things. Then you got the swarmers who's focusing on one or two things, you know, that they believe is case ending. And then you have the boxer who's a little bit more defensive in nature, a little bit more pragmatic, a little bit more de-escalating. You know, if the boxer has maybe 20 plus years of experience, they can counterpunch pretty well. They can be offensive, but that's not their style. It's not their sweet spot. And now we're on to the top dog. And my hope is when you understand these divorce attorney tactics, you can maybe, you know, interview a little bit better for the attorneys you want. You can see who's on the other side. You can understand what's going on so it doesn't feel so painful. And you understand this is a game. It's a nasty game, but it's a game for so many, unfortunately, who are going through difficult divorce. The name of the game is inflict as much pain as possible so you'll give me everything I want. That's the name of these difficult competitive divorces. And it's really sad, really unfortunate, especially if you have children. All right, so let's focus on the top dog. Let me put this in perspective. There's musicians, and then there's Taylor Swift. Okay. There's gymnasts. Then there's Simone Biles. There's tennis tournaments. And then there's the U.S. Open. I'm actually going to the U.S. Open this afternoon to get my 2024 hat, and you'll see it next episode. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the top dog. They're just beyond everyone. They're like setting the curve and beyond. All right. So that's the top dog. They're the best of the best. They can do every style, pretty much excellent. I mean, that's why they're the top dog. So let's move on to our quote. If we're talking about top dogs, and now is the U.S. Open, made me think about the best tennis player ever, the GOAT, the greatest of all time, Novak Djokovic. And his quote goes like this. In terms of playing ability, there is nothing to choose between number 1 and 100. Instead, it's a question of who wants it more. Which player is mentally stronger? Which player is going to fight the hardest in the big points? These are the things that determine who is the champion. I mean, that's coming from the GOAT himself, and that's what you want. You know, what you're getting with the top dog is you're getting someone who's top on the law. They are top on the law. They are up to date. You're getting someone who's a top persuader. They are the type of people that could probably sell ice to Eskimos. That's what we're talking about. They are very persuasive. And of course, they're top dollar. So buyer beware. It's a certain type of person who hires a top dog. And let's get into it. First of all, yes, these are heavyweights. And I don't want you to think they can only be naughty. They can be naughty and they can be nice. And I want to give an example. You know, Christy Brinkley, I think, had maybe 4 divorces. She had a divorce from Billy Joel. Seemed pretty ordinary, traditional. We didn't hear a lot of drama about it. I believe they reached a settlement, believe the details of those settlement were private. And she hired top dogs, and I'm sure Billy Joel had a top dog, but they were nice. There was no drama. So things moved forward, right? But then Christy Brinkley had this divorce with Peter Cook, and there was drama because Peter Cook cheated on her. And that really set Christy Brinkley off. It became nasty. All of their private lives was spread out, in the tabloids, in the newspapers, on the internet. And it is nasty. And you can even still Google their names and you can see that. Now just think, they had top dogs there too, right? And, the children of Christy Brinkley and Peter Cook can go on the internet and they can see these nasty things that each parent said about each other. And, that's what you're getting with a top dog. They can be nice. They can be the good cop. They could be also the bad cop. They could literally be your best friend and your worst enemy in the same minute. Okay. I hinted on it. They are expensive. We're thinking private country club. This is not a public golf course. And, most attorneys do an hourly model. Some do fixed fees, but most attorneys do an hourly model. Again, this is $1,000+ an hour to work with them. But they also may expect a bonus because remember, they're representing high net worth individuals. And if these top dogs can do a service, the hourly model doesn't really compensate for all their experience. And so they might even ask for a bonus. That bonus request may even be in the retainer, but it wouldn't matter to someone who hires a top dog because they're getting such a result. So they're very exclusive and they're very expensive. Okay. Now, they're also immune to collateral damage. I want you to think of them sort of like the Godfather, played by Marlon Brando, Don Corleone. They're more like that, where, and less like Cousin Vinny. If it's like loud and bombastic, they could be that way, but it's more subtle generally. And I give an example. If we're dealing with the mafia and, no, this is just from the movies. I have nothing against the mafia, just from the movies. But I believe if you owe money to the mafia, they may break your leg, punch you in the nose, threaten you. But what these people would do, they would probably attack your family, maybe kidnap your dog. I mean, they might even tell you they're going to give your dog non-organic food. So you're like, oh my God, I got to settle. So they're going to do some nasty stuff. It's not just between you two. It could be your whole family and your dog. So watch out. And they're immune to that collateral damage. All right. Now, my take on this is if you have the resources and if you could muzzle the top dog, give an example. If it's private, if it's Christy Brinkley 1, where it's out of court, with Billy Joel and it's private, hire the top dog. The billionaires do. The Bill Gates and his wife, Melinda, they hire top dogs. They resolve things outside of court. Jeff Bezos and his wife, same idea. They were muzzled. There was no drama. Now, if there's drama, got to be careful because they can go for blood. So let me give you some downside. And you might want the blood, but if you have children, you might need to need to think about that for the long term, because remember what I tell you, when you have children, can you go to their wedding and have a civil time? If you're going to say such nasty things about each other in your divorce over many years in litigation, I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't think it's going to happen. And you're going to just create a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety for your children and extended family. All right. So let me give you some downsides. Let's say a top dog is like a top restaurant. And let's say I'm out at this top restaurant with my wife for my anniversary and I got the table I want. If Tom Cruise literally, comes to that restaurant, they are kicking me out of my table. It doesn't matter. I can pay the fare. They don't care. They're moving me if Tom wants my seat. And tell you the truth, I would probably give it to him anyway, because I like his movies. All right. So that's what I want you to think about with a top dog. Just because you can go into this firm, just because you have maybe the funding, unless you are that top person in that world, they might not give you, that service you're looking for. What they might do is hand you off to, let's call it a backup singer. A backup singer, one of my favorite, artist, unfortunately dead, Leonard Cohen. He had great backup singers, but you're still not Leonard Cohen. You're 20 feet, as they say, from stardom. Now, some of these attorneys who work in with these top dogs can be really good. And I'm sure the top dog is dealing with the strategy, but it's not the same. So think of that, when you're hiring a top dog. And my last comment on this, and this is a really subtle one, and it's sort of, until you really understand it, it's hard to really internalize it, but they might be able to create a narrative, a frame that wins. Okay, you might be thinking, okay, Corey, what's the big problem with that? But that win may not be true. And the narrative may not be true. I'll give an example from a different world that maybe people know, is the O.J. Simpson case. Johnny Cochran, master persuader, looked at all that evidence and came up with, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. Now, we all know O.J. did that. He did. I mean, most people know he did what he was charged with, but he got a top dog and got him out. So that's what might happen. They could pull off these amazing feats, and that shouldn't have happened. That's what you're getting with the top dog. All right, so let's wrap up this episode, this segment on these divorce attorney tactics, and let's just figure out which ones you should hire. And if you haven't checked out, if you're just coming into this one, you're like, oh, top dog, I want to check this out. Maybe you thought it was about dogs, and I'm sorry, it's not. Check out Cesar Millan. I was just watching him the other day. He's so good. He's so good at training dogs and humans. All right, so here we go. The Swarmer is, I would say, if you have a weak legal position and you have the stomach for this, not just settling, but you really want what you want, you're not going to back down, you're asking for a lot. That's what the Swarmer is good for. They're just making a lot of noise. The Brawler is pretty good if you have something good on the other side and you really want to go after them. That's the Brawler. The Boxer, if it is, you probably have more of a traditional divorce. Maybe there's some issues. If there's more issues, you just want a real experienced Boxer type of an attorney who's not only pragmatic, not only defensive, not only trying to de-escalate, but who can counterpunch, who can give some offense. And those are those elite boxers who can go toe-to-toe with most. But if you do have a higher budget, and you are in that world, then you might want to consider the top dog. You just want to make sure that you're muzzling them, because if they are left, to their own devices, they can cause destruction. And it can be really nasty for years and decades to come. All right. Let me just pause here for 1 second before we move on. And I just want to appreciate that it's overwhelming. First of all, it's overwhelming to get divorced, to think about divorce, and you have to, maybe you're served with divorce papers and you have such a short amount of time. I don't know why it's such a short amount of time to actually get a divorce attorney. And all this process is overwhelming. I appreciate that. Now, the best is if you have a personal referral, that's probably the best. I'm not sure how accurate all the reviews are for attorneys, like on Google, because you see some attorneys who have like 500 Google reviews. I would read them. I do that for restaurants. Like one of my favorite restaurants in New York City, here's a plug, Chola. If you're on the East Side and you're looking for Indian food in Midtown, check out Chola. It is, I'm giving it a chef's kiss. That's how good it is. But the point is, if you look at some of the reviews, it doesn't give it 5 stars, even though I think it is a 5-star type of place for Indian food. Excellent. And that's the point. I'm not exactly sure if these reviews are legitimate or not. I'm not sure what's going on. But if they're more in-depth reviews, that might be more helpful than just like stars or quick reviews. Also, you got to see who the attorney is and see if they're still there. A lot of times attorneys switch, and you might be getting a bait and switch, not just the main attorney, but someone else. But if you are looking for more information about how to find the best attorney for you, check out my book, which is right here, Chapter 8. Chapter 8 in the book, I deal with this issue. We are going to do a series on this in the podcast, but if you can't wait and you want to check it out now, go to the book and you can learn a little bit more about these concepts to help you. All right. Our next episode, we're moving to a new segment. We're done with divorce attorney tactics. Thank God. We're moving on. And what we're doing is I want you to think of court, because really what we've been doing is laying a foundation. Now you can have a little bit more control. Now you're doing that 24-hour pause. Now you're thinking of things more tactically. You're thinking about your divorce budget. And now you're like, hey, things aren't settling. You might actually have to go to court for leverage to move things forward. You need a decider. And consider this your freshman orientation. Right now it's in August. We're moving into the fall. Every time fall, I think of school, starting school. It's a big change from high school to college. And it's a big change if you've never been to court. It's like that. It's like, whoa, what is this world? So I'm going to go over some of the things that you need to think about, some of the major things you need to think about if you're going to court, so it won't be so overwhelming the first time. That's what you got. All right. So I thank you all for tuning in, for working on your divorce, not just in it. That's the key. Just getting a little better each week. So it's not going to be so reactive, so stressful. And the reason is because you need to make better decisions in your divorce. Your attorney is only a counselor, only an advisor. You have to make the decision that's best for you, best for your family, best for your post-divorce life. And the more grounded you are, the better you can do that. And that's what this podcast, that's what this book is all about. So thank you again. And continue the work. It's going to get better. Continue the work. And I know it's sometimes hard. So thank you for tuning in. My name is Corey Shapiro. This is Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind.
Thank you for tuning in to the Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind podcast. We would love to hear your feedback. Send Corey an email to feedback@gettingdivorced.org. And if you've read his book, please consider leaving an Amazon review. This podcast offers general information only. It cannot replace legal advice. If you need tailored advice, contact an attorney licensed to practice in your area.